Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles. When I met Judith, she truly was a charming woman, the kind who walks into a room and shifts the air without saying a word. There was this light about her, this calm warmth that made you forget whatever was bothering you. I remember the first time she came over to my place. Bare walls, old couch, mismatched dishes, but she made it feel like a home just by being there, smiling, laughing, saying things like, "Well, you've got good bones here, Keith. A place with character." She was sweet and friendly, and she had this way of talking that made you feel like everything was going to be all right. Like somehow she had this secret that life wasn't as hard as it seemed, and when she'd look at me across the table with her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee and say, "We're going to build something, you and me," I believed her. We dated for a couple of years. It wasn't always smooth what relationship is, but we knew each other, or at least I thought we did. When we got married, it wasn't a big fancy wedding. No chandeliers, no violin quartet, just a backyard, a few close friends, and Judith in a simple white dress that made my heart stop. "I don't care if it rains," she whispered to me before we walked out. "As long as we do this," it rained and it was still perfect. A couple of years later, Noah was born. I remember holding him in the hospital, swaddled in that blue and pink blanket and thinking, this is it. I had the family every man dreams about. Judith was glowing, tired, but still smiling in that way that made the world feel right. For a long time, we were happy. Or at least I thought we were. But looking back, I guess I missed the signs. You don't notice the distance right away. It starts quietly, like a slow leak in a tire. One day, you realize you're riding low, and you can't. Remember when it started. Judith changed. Somewhere along the way, that easy smile faded. She stopped laughing at my jokes. She became sharper, more aggressive, not in a violent way, but in her tone, in her presence. There was a negativity that followed her around like a shadow. "The neighbors are a nightmare," she'd mutter. "This dinner's dry again, Keith. Why can't you just fix the sink like I asked?" It became a constant chorus. House, food, people, me. Nothing was good enough. I tried to joke to lighten the mood. "Judith, it's just a leaky faucet, not the end of the world." "You always say that," she snapped back. "But you never do anything. I got used to it." Maybe that was my way of dealing with it. I stopped pushing back. Habit is a slow poison. It creeps in and convinces you that bad is normal, that this is just what marriage is. Wear and tear, arguments, nights sleeping on opposite sides of the bed in silence. I told myself everyone goes through this. Eventually, I stopped fighting. I just listened, nodded, stayed out of the way. I poured myself into work. Maybe too much. I'd leave early, stay late. I told myself it was for us, but maybe it was just easier than coming home to the cold. But the biggest problem between us was financial. Judith never really worked in the traditional sense. She'd take on sewing jobs now and then, hemming a dress, fixing a zipper, altering someone's uniform, but it wasn't steady. If a neighbor needed something, she'd do it for a few bucks, but that wasn't income we could rely on. The real consistent money came from me. I worked in a factory, long grinding shifts that left my hands cracked and my back stiff most nights. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, or at least it tried to. No matter how hard I worked, it never seemed like enough. There was always something, an unexpected doctor's visit, the water heater breaking down, no one needing new shoes or school supplies. Judith wasn't exactly what you'd call a planner. She had no patience for budgeting. She'd say, "We need this, Keith. What do you want me to do? Let the place fall apart." And I couldn't argue, not without starting a fight. But what little we had disappeared like water through a sigh. Sometimes, I'd come home and find a new lamp or another decorative pillow on the couch. "It was on sale," she'd say, as if that made it better. I remember one night I sat down with her, calculator in hand, bills spread out on the table. "We're bleeding money, Judith," I said gently, trying not to sound accusatory. "We have to cut back." She didn't even look up from her phone. "Maybe if your job paid more." we wouldn't have to. That one stung. So, about 2 years ago, I picked up a second job, graveyard shift at a 24-hour store, stocking shelves, hauling pallets. It was brutal. I'd leave the house around 6 a.m. after finishing at the store, come home, shower, and head straight to the factory. I was running on fumes, barely sleeping, but at least we weren't sinking anymore. Of course, it came at a cost. I was never home. I know that. And yeah, I distanced myself, not because I stopped loving my family, but because working non-stop was the only way I could keep the roof over our heads. Plus, and I say this with some shame, Judith's constant complaining made the silence of an empty stockroom at 3 a.m. feel like peace. Any excuse not to be home started to feel like a blessing. That's the truth. And I hate that it got to that point, but it did. The cost of surviving started to feel like giving up parts of myself. The only thing that kept me grounded was Noah, my boy. He's always been good, better than I deserved maybe. Respectful, responsible, and smart. He handled things on his own, like a kid twice his age. I'd find notes on the fridge from him. "Don't worry, Dad. I made dinner. There's a plate for you in the oven," or went to the library. "Be back by 5. Love you." Even with me working 2 jobs, he never complained. He knew I was doing it for us. And somehow, even though we didn't get much time together, we stayed close. Our Sundays were everything. No matter how tired I was, I made time for him. We'd go for walks down by the river or catch a matinee, sometimes just sit on a bench in the park and talk. "What do you want to be, Noah?" I asked him once, watching a squirrel dart across the path. "I don't know," he said. "But I want to do something that matters, like you do." That nearly broke me. I didn't feel like what I did mattered. But in his eyes, I was still something solid. Judith, though, she just kept slipping further away. She stopped asking about my day, stopped joining us on Sundays. She barely talked to Noah unless she was reminding him to take out the trash or close the fridge properly. I try to include her. "Hey, we're going out for burgers. You want to come?" "No, I'm tired." "You sure? It's that place you like with the milkshakes." I said, "No, Keith, just go." She stopped laughing, stopped looking me in the eye. Sometimes I'd talk to her and she'd stare right past me like I wasn't even there. It wasn't just that she was unhappy. She was somewhere else, like her body was here, but everything else about her was in another world. It had been a couple of years since Judith and I had been intimate. Sure, we shared a bed, but only in the literal sense. We lay side by side like strangers on a bus. Some nights we'd exchange a few tired words, something about groceries or bills, but there was no warmth left, no touch, no tenderness, just silence and space. Sometimes I blamed myself. I was barely around, always working, always tired. I come home and collapse, and maybe she had grown tired of trying. Maybe I had too. But deep down, even before everything blew up, I had this quiet suspicion that what we had wasn't just a tired marriage, it was a broken one. Still, I kept going. I convinced myself this was adulthood, that this was just what happened after a while. The romance fades, the connection dulls, and you just endure. I told myself every couple had their seasons, that maybe one day we'd find each other again. But we never did, and we probably would have kept trudging along like that for years, sleepwalking through a life that looked fine from the outside, if it hadn't been for Noah. That Sunday morning started out unusually peaceful. Judith made pancakes, her way of pretending things were normal. We actually sat down together, all 3 of us. I tried to enjoy it, even made a joke about how Noah was growing like a weed. "You'll be taller than me by next summer," I said, nudging his shoulder. "Already am," he smirked, mouth full of syrup. Judith didn't laugh. She just quietly cleared plates like she couldn't wait for breakfast to be over. As she scrubbed at a pan in the kitchen, Noah gave me a look. Serious, focused, not like him. "Dad," he said, voice low, "can we talk alone?" I set down my coffee. "Yeah, of course. What's going on? You okay?" He nodded. Yeah, it's not about me. I'd rather tell you outside. That was enough for me to know it wasn't something small. Grab your jacket, I said. Let's go for a drive. We didn't say much in the car. I let him pick the music, some soft indie band I didn't recognize, and we drove around town, past the ball fields, the gas station, the roads we'd taken 100 times before. Eventually, we stopped at this little store that had the best hot dogs in the county. Same place we used to go when he was little. 2 dogs, extra mustard, I said, trying to keep the mood light, and a couple of sodas. We sat on the hood of the car by the river. Same place we used to skip stones when he was 9. The wind was gentle, and the water glimmered under the pale morning sun. So, I said after a while, "What's this about? School stuff? A girl?" No, it didn't smile. He stared out at the water, then looked down at the hot dog in his hands. "It's about Mom," he said. I felt something shift in my chest. "Okay, I didn't mean to find anything," he said quickly, like he was defending himself. "It just happened. I didn't say anything, just waited. 2 days ago I got sick at school. Stomach thing. They let me go. Home, early. I figured Mom would be there. Maybe I'd just lie down or something." He paused, and I could see his throat move as he swallowed hard. When I got home, there was a white sedan parked in the driveway. Not brand new, but clean. Windows, tinted. I didn't recognize it. I thought, I don't know, maybe one of Mom's sewing clients or a neighbor. He looked at me then, his eyes flickering with something I couldn't quite name. Maybe dread, maybe shame, maybe both. But when I opened the door, he trailed off, jaw tightening. I heard sounds. I said nothing, but he must have seen something in my face because his voice trembled for just a second before he steadied it. Laughter and moaning, he said finally. It was her. I froze. I was already halfway into the hallway, but I stopped. Something just stopped me. I didn't even breathe. I don't know if it was fear or what, but I couldn't move. I couldn't go further. He looked away toward the riverbank, chewing the inside of his cheek the way he used to when he was little and trying not to cry after scraping his knee. I turned, around and left, he continued. Didn't say anything, just walked out. I didn't know what to do. I wandered around the neighborhood for a while. Thought about calling you, but I didn't know how. I didn't even know if I was right. Maybe I misunderstood. I was scared I'd say something that would blow everything up, and I'd be wrong. I sat there on the hood of the car beside him, my hands gripped between my knees. My mouth was dry, but my heart felt wet, like it was drowning in something I didn't have a name for. He took a breath and said about half an hour later I saw her come out with some guy. I turned to him slowly, but didn't say a word. They were hugging. She had her arm around him, laughing like they were on a date. He shook his head almost, in disbelief even as the words came out. Then they kissed. Not just a hello or goodbye thing. A real kiss, long like they were somewhere alone and in love. I closed my eyes just for a second. Just long enough to see the image in my mind. Judith smiling at someone the way she hadn't smiled at me in years. "Noah," I said finally, my voice hollow. "Are you absolutely sure? You're not guessing, right?" He looked right at me. And in that moment, I didn't see my son. I saw a young man who'd been forced to grow up in the space of an afternoon. "I'm sure, Dad. I wish I wasn't, but I am." His voice didn't shake. His gaze didn't break. He was telling the truth. That was enough. I didn't need pictures. I didn't need some private investigator. My boy had no reason to lie. I believed him. And that was the moment it all collapsed. My throat burned. My chest tightened like a vice had clamped down around my ribs. Something deep inside me, something I didn't know still lived there, snapped. In my house, in my home, while I was out, breaking my back, working double shifts, sacrificing sleep and time and pride for this family. She had the audacity to bring another man in. "Noah," I said, "can you stay at a friend's house for a few hours?" He looked at me, hesitant, but nodded. Yeah, I can go to Jordan's. His folks won't mind. Good, I said. I'll call you when you can come back. I didn't give him any explanation. How could I? What words were there for this kind of thing? I just gave him a quiet nod and drove him across town. We didn't talk on the way. When we got there, I parked the truck, looked him in the eyes, and said, "Thank you for telling me." He nodded. I could see how badly he wanted to ask me what I was going to do, but he didn't. Maybe he already knew. He got out, shut the door, gently, and walked up the driveway. I sat there for a minute, staring at the steering wheel. I couldn't feel my hands. My body was there, but my mind was far away, boiling. Then I started the engine and headed home. The second I opened the front door, I heard her. "Well, finally," Judith snapped from the kitchen. "While you're off doing God knows what. I've been slaving away in here, making lunch like a damn servant." Something in me cracked. "Shut up," I said. I didn't shout, I didn't whisper. I just said it flat, cold, deliberate. She froze. I saw her blink, stunned. Judith wasn't used to that tone from me. We fought, sure, but she always had the upper hand. Always had the words, the venom. I usually walked away or tried to calm things down, but this time I didn't. "How dare you?" She spat. "You're ungrateful. I kill myself in this house while you disappear for hours at a time, and I don't know what came over me. It was a flash of something red, something buried for years. An impulse, fury, betrayal, pain." My hand moved before I could think. I slapped her just once. It wasn't hard enough to knock her down, but it was enough. Enough to make her go silent. Her mouth fell open in shock. I stood there, chest heaving, unable to believe what I'd done, and yet some part of me had no regrets. None. I'd never hit anyone in my life. Not her. Not even when she screamed or threw things or mocked me. But this wasn't an argument. This wasn't just some spat about chores or money. This was everything. Everything we had built burned to the ground. "I want you to pack your things," I said, my voice low and cold, "and get out of my house." She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "I don't care when it started," I went on. "I don't care how long you've been cheating on me or who the hell he is. I just want you gone." She snapped out of it then, eyes wide with rage. "Are you insane? This is my house, too. You think you can just throw me out? On what grounds? You have no proof. You're delusional." She lunged past me into the living room, started knocking things over, cushions, picture frames. She picked up a vase and hurled it against the wall. It shattered. "You have no right. None," she screamed. "You're paranoid. You're losing your damn mind." She was in a frenzy now, knocking over a lamp, shoving the dining room chairs sideways, tears of fury running down her face. "Judith!" I barked. She didn't stop, so I raised my voice, not with anger, but with finality. "It was Noah," I said. She froze. "He saw you," I said, stepping closer, looking her dead in the eyes. "He saw you screwing your lover." That stopped her. I saw it in her eyes, a flicker. Small, but real. Maybe it was shame. Maybe fear. She dropped her gaze just for a second, and her tone changed. She didn't yell. She didn't insult me. She just stood there breathing hard, lips trembling slightly. I stepped forward into the quiet and pressed, my voice firm, low. "If you've got a shred of dignity left," I said, "if you care even a little about your son, then leave. Let him live in peace. Don't make him grow up in the same house as the woman who destroyed his family." She looked at me like she didn't recognize who I was. White eyes, lips pressed tight. Judith had always been the dominant one. Sharp and toned, fast thinking. She always had something to say. But now, nothing, just that look. She was gritting her teeth like she was fighting to hold something in, and I braced myself for a final scream. Another round of chaos, but it never came. She turned around. I heard the bedroom door crack open, the rustling of drawers, the scrape of the suitcase being pulled from under the bed. I didn't move. I stayed, standing in the middle of the living room, listening to every sound like I was underwater. After maybe 10 minutes, she came out, dragging that old black suitcase she used whenever she went to visit her sister in Albany. She walked past me without looking at me, her chin lifted like she was trying to maintain some last ounce of control. At the door, she paused. "You'll regret this," she said. And just like that, she was gone. I don't even remember hearing the door close. I just remember the silence that followed, heavy and strange. I sat on the couch like a statue. My hands were still trembling, my jaw locked so tight I could feel it in my temples. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. My mind was on fire and numb all at once, replaying everything. Our entire marriage, every stage of it. The early days when she used to call me babe and laugh at my dumb jokes. The little vacations we took when we couldn't afford more than a motel room and greasy takeout. The miscarriages, the fights, the cold silences, the years slipping by. Was it my fault? Had I stopped trying, pulled away too far? Could I have done something? Anything different? Maybe, maybe not. But in that moment, none of it mattered anymore. The damage was done. She had made her choice. What she did was on her. That was her betrayal, not mine. I reached for my phone and called Noah. He picked up after 2 rings. "You can come back now," I said quietly. He didn't say much, just a small okay, but I could hear the relief in his voice. I picked him up from Jordan's place and we barely exchanged words on the drive home. I didn't want to push him. He'd already seen too much. Back at the house, we sat down at the kitchen table and ate what Judith had left in the fridge before she'd packed. Chicken salad, rice, some cut-up fruit that had gone a bit soft. We didn't look at each other much. There was nothing that needed to be said. He already knew. And so did I. On Monday morning, I made an appointment with a lawyer. I knew it was coming. Hell, it had probably been coming for years, but now it was real. Divorce. The word made my stomach twist. It was expensive, though, more than I expected. With what I make at the shop, it was going to hurt, no doubt about it. But I had no choice. The lawyer, an older guy named Frell, told me the first thing I needed to do was change all the locks. If she's out, he said, keep her out. She's got no legal claim on the house if it's inherited in your name and you're separated. He also said custody would be key. I told him Noah wanted to stay with me and he nodded. That's a strong point in your favor, especially at his age. I didn't want to drag Noah into a mess. But I also knew the kind of damage Judith could do if she stayed involved the way she always had. Volatile, dramatic, all about control. I had to protect him, even if it meant going through hell to do it. So, I changed the locks that same day. Every one of them. Front door, back garage. And for a few days, things were quiet. Too quiet, maybe. Then one night, just after we'd finished dinner and Noah had retreated to his room, she came back. It was like a thunderclap. I heard the rattle at the front door first, the handle jiggling, then the sound of keys trying and failing, then the banging. "Keith, open this damn door! What the hell is this?" I froze, my fork still in my hand. The banging got louder. "Keith, you changed the locks. This is my house too. You can't just lock me out like a dog." Noah's door stayed shut. I could hear his music playing faintly, too loud for this time of night. It wasn't a mistake. He was pretending not to hear. I stayed sitting in the living room, waiting for Judith to calm down. The minutes stretched on, the silence between the bangs on the door and her yells feeling like hours. The frustration, the anger in her voice, it didn't faze me anymore. I had lived with it long enough. She'd been relentless when it came to trying to control things, but now I was done. I didn't even bother to get up when she finally left. I just let her go. I was tired of fighting, tired of the shouting. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me crack. Not anymore. The house was mine, and Noah was with me. That was all that mattered. She could bang on the door as much as she wanted. But the truth was, she had no ground to stand on. The divorce process, though, it wasn't as easy as just getting her out of my life. She didn't give up easily. Every move she made felt like a challenge. She argued over everything, fought over every little thing that came up, like she was trying to hold on to whatever scraps of control she could. The papers, the assets, the accounts. She presented her excuses like they were facts, tried to find loopholes, tried to twist things around. But in the end, she had no solid arguments, no income, no job, and Noah made it crystal clear he wanted nothing to do with her. That was her downfall. It wasn't even about the money anymore. It was about the fact that she had lost him. When we finally signed everything, it felt almost surreal. The house stayed mine, my parents' house, and Noah stayed, with me by law since she couldn't prove she could support him. And that was it. She got nothing, not a dime. The lawyer told me she wouldn't have to pay child support since she didn't have a job. I didn't care about any of that. The thing that kept me up at night, the thing that nodded at me now, were the lawyer's fees. It was a relief when the lawyer agreed to let me pay him in installments. It gave me some breathing room. Noah and I were able to start over. The weight of it all didn't feel so suffocating anymore. We could plan, organize, save a little. It was small, but it was ours. I sat down one evening to go over the finances. I had started handling the money now, managing the accounts, paying bills, buying groceries, doing all the things Judith used to take care of. But now that I had full control over everything, I was shocked by what I found. For years, I thought it was just me. I thought we didn't have enough because life was expensive, that we just needed more income, that I wasn't doing enough. But now I saw the truth. I didn't need that second job. My factory salary alone was enough to cover everything. I could pay the bills, buy what we needed, and still have some left over. The realization hit me hard, or had all the money gone before. I didn't even have to strain myself anymore to make ends meet. But for years, we had barely scraped by, and I hadn't understood why. Then I figured it out. Judith had been wasting everything, every penny. I don't know if it was sheer irresponsibility or if she had been spending it on the other man. I didn't have proof, no solid evidence. But after everything, I wouldn't be surprised. I wasn't angry about it anymore, though. Not really. I'd learned that anger wasn't going to solve anything. It was just another thing I had to let go of. What bothered me was the wasted time, the years I'd spent feeling like I was the problem. The lawyer's fees were still a problem, but at least I could pay them. I didn't feel like I was drowning anymore. Noah and I found some stability. We began to organize our lives together, budgeting, planning purchases. I remember the first time we made a list of little luxuries we could afford. Eating out, going to the movies, buying new clothes without waiting for sales. It felt good, like we were finally taking control of our own lives again. It's been a month since the divorce was finalized. Judith is living with her sister now. I don't know if she ever planned on coming back, but it doesn't matter. Noah hasn't wanted to see her once during this whole time. Not once. She's called him. She's written to him, but Noah doesn't answer. He tells me he has nothing to say to her, and I can't say I blame him after everything. I'm not sure what she expects. Maybe she thinks if she keeps reaching out, he'll come running back to her. But that's not how this works. Not anymore. Not after everything she did. Noah and we've been through a lot. But through it all, we have each other. Our relationship, our bond, it's stronger than ever. We're in this together. He's the one who helped me put pen to paper and write all of this. I don't know if anyone will ever read it, but I needed to get it out. Needed to say it all. For years I kept it all inside, never truly expressing what was going on. But now, I'm finally letting it go. With Noah's help, we're managing the household, accounts together. And you know what? It's actually going better than I ever expected. I didn't realize how much we'd been missing, how much stress we had been under trying to make ends meet. Now, we treat ourselves. We eat well. We don't have to sacrifice little things, little pleasures just to get by. There are even days now where I don't have to work at night. That was a big one. For so long I worked myself to the bone, juggling a second job just to make sure there was enough. But with the change in our finances, I can actually breathe a little. No has been incredible through all of this. We're not just father and son anymore. We're a team. I'll admit, I didn't always understand him before. He was quieter, more withdrawn, probably because of everything he witnessed growing up. I thought maybe I'd failed him in some way, but now I see that we've both been trying to survive in our own ways. Now we're rebuilding together. When I finally pay off the lawyer's fees, my next step is to quit that second job. I'll have more time to focus on Noah, to be the father I should have been all along. I missed so much time with him because of Judith and that damn job. I kept telling myself it was for him, that it was all for his future, for his well-being. But in the end, what was the point if I wasn't there to actually be with him, to experience those moments that matter? He's growing up so fast and I can't afford to miss any more of it. I'm still in time to recover what's left. I know there's still a lot of work to do, a lot of healing. There will be days when it feels like we're back at square one, but I know now that we've got this. We've come so far already, and I won't let anything take that from us. 6 months later, it's been almost 6 months since the funeral. I can't believe it's been that long already. Sometimes it still feels like everything just happened yesterday. My name is Noah, and my father is dead. The one responsible for it all was my mother. I'm staying at my uncle's house, my dad's brother. I never thought I'd end up here, but I can't say I haven't been grateful for his support. It's been the thing that's allowed me to start moving forward, even though it's been hard. Every day is a struggle to process what happened, but at least now I can see some light at the end of the tunnel. It helps that my uncle and his family have been there for me, offering me a place to stay, making sure I'm okay, and slowly I'm starting to feel like I'm going to be okay too. But that night, everything seemed to unravel again. My dad had been doing better. After everything with the divorce, he'd started to get his life back together. We were in a good place. We were watching TV a Sunday evening, just the two of us in the living room. For the first time in so long, it felt like things were finally settling down. I was starting to feel like maybe we could really heal from everything that had happened. Then came that knock on the door. It startled me. It was loud and unexpected, shattering the peace we had. I looked over at my dad, who sighed and stood up. I could tell he was irritated, but he didn't make a big deal of it. He just walked to the door. I knew who it was before I even saw her. My mother, she was standing there, her head down, looking so different from the woman I remembered. Her expression was hard to read, almost like she wasn't even there, just going through the motions. She didn't look like someone who had any right to be there, not after everything she'd done. I couldn't hear their words, but I saw enough. My dad was speaking to her, his body stiff with resolve. He wasn't yelling, but his posture made it clear that he wasn't going to let her in. It was as if he was speaking to a stranger, not the woman who had once been his wife. The conversation was calm, but I could tell he was firm in his decision. I stood up from the couch, my fists clenched. I was angry, so angry. How could she come here after everything? After the divorce, the affair, the way she tore us apart? How could she show up like this? And expect what, an apology? Did she really think she had any right to ask for anything? I didn't understand it. It didn't make sense. Just as I was about to walk over to the door to say something, anything to stop her, she started yelling, "Thief!" She screamed at my dad, her voice cracking with rage. "You stole everything from me, my life, my house, my happiness. You left me with nothing." Her words cut through the air, louder now, more venomous. Each word seemed to carry more anger than the last. She was shaking with fury. My dad, trying to stay composed, was blocking the doorway, not letting her pass. His voice was steady, but his words were clear. He wasn't letting her in. He wasn't backing down this time. I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't the same man he used to be when it came to her. He had been broken by her, But now he was standing, his ground. "You need to leave," he said, his voice firm. "I'm not letting you in. Not after everything. It's over." But she didn't stop. She just kept screaming. And then it happened. I was almost next to them, just a few steps away. My body was frozen in place as I watched my mother reach into her purse. I saw her fingers curl around the cold metal, and when she pulled out the revolver, it felt like the world stopped. My heart pounded in my chest, and for a split second I couldn't breathe. My mother, the woman who had been the center of my life for so long, was holding a gun. A gun? I thought I was dreaming. It didn't make sense. But then, without a single hesitation, she raised it and fired. The sound of the gunshot shattered everything louder than I could have ever imagined. My dad staggered back, his eyes wide in shock, his mouth open in disbelief. The bullets hit him. He collapsed, his body crashing into the living room table with a sickening thud, and then he crumpled to the floor. I screamed his name, louder than I ever thought possible. My voice was a raw, desperate sound filled with terror. "Dad, no!" I cried, but it was too late. At that moment, my mother turned her gun on me. I can still see her eyes. Those eyes that had once shown affection, warmth and love, now completely unhinged. There was no recognition there, just wild conviction, as if she believed she was in the right, as if this was something she had to do. My blood ran cold. I thought for a second that she was going to kill me too, that the next shot would be for me. Her finger was on the trigger, her hand steady, but then she hesitated. For one breathless moment, she lowered the gun slightly. I thought maybe, just maybe, there was some shred of humanity left in her. Maybe she was reconsidering what she was about to do. But I couldn't be sure. All I knew was that she was a different person now. Someone I didn't recognize, someone capable of unspeakable violence. But she didn't pull the trigger. Not on me. And then through the haze of panic and adrenaline, I heard my dad's voice. Weak. Barely a whisper, but it was there. "Noah, get away from her." I froze for a moment, hearing the pain in his voice. He was telling me to stay away from her, but my body refused to listen. My mother was still holding the gun, and I couldn't just leave her like that. Not after what she'd done, not after what she was capable of. She screamed at my dad in a rage I had never seen in her before. Her face twisted. With fury, she turned toward him, raising the gun once again, her eyes burning with madness. It was as if the sight of him laying there, vulnerable, had made her snap even further. I didn't think. My instincts kicked in. I lunged at her. The force of my body hitting hers knocked her down, and the gun slipped from her grasp. I heard the metallic clink of it hitting the floor, but she was fast. Too fast. She scrambled, grabbing the gun in an instant, her movements fueled by desperation and rage. She was like a wild animal, clawing at me, biting me, kicking me with all the strength she had left. "Stop it! Stop it!" I yelled, but she wasn't listening. She was too far gone. I grabbed her wrist, trying to keep the gun pointed away from me, away from my dad. I was pushing all my strength into holding her arm down, but she was still trying to aim, her other hand struggling to pull the trigger. The gun went off again. Bang, bang. The first two shots hit the kitchen wall, leaving jagged holes in the plaster. The third shot was even closer. I felt the air shift as it passed by me, and I saw the bullet rip through one of the kitchen cabinets. The smell of gunpowder filled my nose, making me choke. It burned my throat, but I didn't let go of her arm. I couldn't. Not yet. I couldn't stop fighting her. Not when my dad was still lying there, unable to defend himself. In the corner of my eye, I saw my dad on the floor. His eyes were half closed. His chest was barely rising. His blood was staining the carpet, pooling beneath him. I don't know if he could still hear me or if he saw me, but I knew deep down that he was slipping away. He was leaving us, and I couldn't be by his side. I was still trying to fight her. A neighbor heard the commotion and called the cops. The police arrived soon after, breaking down the door with force. They stormed into the living room, and I could barely make sense of what was happening. My mind was still spinning from the chaos, from everything I had just witnessed. My hands were trembling, my body covered in scratches from the struggle with my mother. The police pulled me away from her, restraining her as she continued to scream and thrash around. It was like something out of a horror movie, but it was all too real. The image of her face twisted in fury is something I'll never forget. One of the officers pulled me back and I could barely stand on my own. My legs were like jelly. My head felt heavy and everything around me seemed like it was moving in slow motion. I stumbled over to my dad's side. I knelt beside him, shaking him gently, calling his name over and over, but he didn't respond. His face was pale, his body limp. His blood was everywhere. I touched his face, hoping for some miracle, but I knew in my heart it was too late. "Come on, Dad." "Please," I whispered, tears blurring my vision. I couldn't accept it, couldn't believe it. He was still warm, but he wasn't there. One of the shots had pierced his lung, and he had died before the ambulance could even get there. The world felt like it was collapsing around me. I didn't know what was real anymore, or if any of this was even happening. My mind kept replaying the moments before. The sound of the gunshots, the look in my mother's eyes when she pointed the gun at me, the coldness of her as she fired those shots. I couldn't make sense of it, but I knew one thing. She had taken my dad's life, and nothing could bring him back. The next few hours were a blur. They took me to the hospital to be checked out, but all I wanted to do was wake up from this nightmare. I didn't want to be at the hospital or the police station or anywhere. I just wanted to be with my dad. But it wasn't to be. It was all over. I remember my uncle arriving at the hospital. He hugged me tightly, and his words, simple and comforting, gave me some semblance of stability. "I'm here, Noah. I'm here. You're not alone," he said, his voice breaking, but he didn't let go of me. He promised me he would be with me every step of the way. The funeral was a blur too. It felt like I was trapped in a haze, just going through the motions, nodding and saying things I didn't mean. But at least I wasn't alone. My aunt, my cousins, they were all there. They didn't leave me for a second. They made sure I ate, made sure I had a shoulder to lean on, even when I didn't think I could stand anymore. They made sure I was still, standing even though part of me had already shattered. And then came the trial. I had to face her. I had to face my mother. My own mother, the woman who gave me life, was the one who had killed my dad. It felt like a betrayal I couldn't even begin to process. She stood there in front of everyone, her eyes red from crying, trying to defend herself. She claimed it was an accident, that she didn't mean for it to happen, that she had just wanted to talk to fix things. But that wasn't true. I knew it. She knew it. Everyone in that courtroom knew it. I had seen it all. Her aiming the gun at Dad, her firing the shots. There was no accident. She had made her choice. And then she tried to use me. She tried to use me as a shield. I can still hear her voice, begging me to lie for her. "Noah, please," she said, her voice cracking with false desperation. "You know it was an accident. You know I never meant to hurt anyone. Please just say it was a mistake. You're my son. You should help me. You should protect me." She looked at me, her eyes pleading. I couldn't believe what she was asking. How could she ask me to lie for her after everything she had done? She had taken my father from me, and now she wanted me to be her accomplice. I couldn't. I wouldn't. So, I told the truth. I recounted everything. I told them how she shot my dad 3 times without provocation, how she pointed the gun at me, how I tried to stop her, but she fired 3 more times without remorse, without hesitation, how she screamed at me, how she threatened me, how she didn't care at all about what she was doing. I told them everything. Her reaction in the courtroom was pure outrage. She screamed at me, called me a liar. She beat her chest, begging everyone to believe her, but no one did. The truth was clear. There was no hiding from it. The judge listened, carefully, his face grim as he took in everything. The evidence, my testimony, and the fact that my mother had shown no remorse. He delivered the sentence without hesitation. She was convicted of aggravated homicide and attempted homicide, life in prison. I have no intention of ever visiting her again. I don't care if she's repentant. I don't care if she rots alone in her cell. It doesn't affect me. It sounds cruel, but every night I wish it had been her who died, that my father was still here with me, and she was just a bad memory. But what's done is done, and nothing will change what happened. A few days ago, I returned to my father's house with my uncle. I hadn't been there since that night. The sofa where my father died was gone. The blood cleaned up, but the bullet holes remain. 2 in the kitchen wall, 1 in the cabinet. My uncle told me that the house is mine now, part of my dad's inheritance, and that when I come of age, I can decide what to do with it. I don't know if I want to live there again. Maybe I'll sell it. Maybe not. For now, I'm not ready to make that decision. Every room reminds me of what happened, and even though it's technically my home, it's also the place where I lost everything. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.